am here in studio with defense attorney Liam Scully, and we so appreciate you joining us today.
It's good to be here, Christine.
And we're talking about the case that I think that's on a lot of people's minds today. Jury and panel been starting today for the second murder trial of Karen Reed. So again, appreciate you joining us today. We're just going to pick your brain a little bit. You're a defense attorney with almost 30 years experience. Your firm, Scully Lagos, you're in Boston and on the South Shore. So if you've been a defense attorney for decades, you've got to have a lot of experience doing this. And I remember when we spoke with you last time, you said something very interesting. You said this trial brought up a lot of issues that happen in other trials, but we don't always hear about. Do you still think that's true?
I definitely think that's true, especially in the public eye. It's a great case for people who usually hear about a case at the beginning and maybe the verdict at the end to suddenly be tuned in and pay attention on a daily basis, getting to discuss all these issues that do come up over and over again. So I think it's good.
No, it's a new trial, again, but the same charges. The defense team did try through several court venues, try to get the charges, at least some of them dropped, but it's going to be the same three charges.
That's right. And those were, I think, long shots that the defense took. You have to take them, and they tried, but no surprise that we're right back with all the charges and doing it again.
Do you think anything's going to be different this time? Last time the trial was 8 weeks, which I thought was really long. I mean, I'm not a legal expert. We've covered a lot of trials. Usually with any murder trial, we're done in 3 weeks tops. That went on for 8 weeks.
I agree with you. It went on an incredibly long time. I think the case might be smoother this time because many of the legal issues that slowed things down have been resolved before by the same judge. So the parties can probably get to it faster with witnesses, and I think the prosecution could try its case in maybe 2-3 weeks, and the defense could put theirs on in a week.
No, it's interesting. Last time, I think the defense only had, 5 or 6 witnesses? This time, their witness list, I think, is topping 80 or 90?
That's kind of common because the witness list will not only include people they really intend to call, but other names that will come up in the trial. And as they are vetting jurors, they want to make sure that the jurors have heard this expansive witness list in case any name comes up, even if that person is not called during the trial.
Now, one that did surprise me was the trooper, Proctor, who was fired by the state police, who testified last time. He's on the defense list. Why is that?
Well, I think the defense is going to want to call him or introduce all kinds of evidence about his role in the case because their theory is that he was very biased and did not follow the facts, but got to a place where he had a specific agenda and was working against the defendant in the case, and they're going to want to expose that and say that was an affair investigation.
Now, usually, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, usually if an officer, a law enforcement officer, gets caught, lying or saying something negative like that, don't they get put on the Brady list? Would that be in his situation? And if he is, how could he testify in court?
Well, I think he would likely be on the Brady list, and he, like any other witness now, he might have a Fifth Amendment right not to testify. If he did that, he would have to assert that right, and if he did that, the defense would likely be able to introduce much of his prior testimony because it was given under oath in a prior trial. So one way or the other, his role in the case is, I think, going to feature prominently.
Okay, and they talk about, if you're like one of the 5 people in the universe that haven't heard about the Karen Reed murder case, she's a woman in her mid-40s. She is charged with the death of her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe. This was back in, I can't believe it was 3 years ago, January 2022. After a night of drinking, prosecutors say she backed her SUV over him and left him to die in the snow. Her defense attorneys have said that's not what happened. She's being framed by law enforcement, and he was beaten up in a house where one of the gatherings was, and then basically thrown out, left to die, and I guess bitten by a dog or mauled by a dog. Now, this trial, the third-party culprit issue is coming up. Does that mean they're actually going to be able to, the people in the house, the Albert household, are they going to actually call those people to testify? Do they have the right to do that?
They do have a right to do that. Third-party culprit is a fairly common defense. My client didn't do it, and we think we know who did, and you point your finger in that direction. Mm-hmm. The counterpoint oftentimes is that the prosecution calls the so-called third-party culprits to the witness stand to have them testify. In fact, they didn't do it. And I think that's what happened for the most part in the first trial.
So what happens? Do you think any chance, do you think, that they're actually going to put any of these people on the stand? I think they're going to get Karen Reed up there too.
Well, you never know whether a defendant would testify in a trial. I do think that other potential third-party culprits will be called by the prosecutor in order to get them up. We were inside the house, and nothing happened inside the house. Mm-hmm. I think that'll be part of the prosecutor's case. It was in the last trial. I think it will be in this trial. Mm-hmm. As far as whether Karen Reed will testify, I guess that's the million-dollar question.
It is, and I know that a couple of times outside the courthouse, she has spoken to the press and says, "I'll do. I want to clear my name. And if my lawyer says it's okay, I'll get up there." Now, today, with the beginning of looking for jurors, what's the defense looking for in a juror, and what's the prosecutor looking for? Any trade secrets?
Well, that's a good question. I think both sides are looking to get rid of any jurors who they think would be bad for them. So more than having a specific type of juror in mind that they want on the jury, the defense is going to want to get rid of anybody who they think has a pro-prosecution bias, mm-hmm. and the prosecution is going to want to get rid of anybody who they think has a pro-defendant bias. And then you end up with a lot of jurors left over who are just kind of in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Do you think have they hired jury consultants in this case? Do you know?
I would think that certainly the Karen Reed team, given all the stops they've pulled out, probably has had the benefit of some jury consultants.
Okay, just my little small opinion here. During the first trial, here's what I was looking at. I was looking at Alan Jackson because he's very dynamic as a defense attorney. I was watching Michael Proctor because it was kind of cringeworthy, and I think it was hard to look away. And like a lot of people, waiting to see if Karen Reed would show any emotion on her face. Do you think that's a fair statement? Do you think a lot of people were looking at the same people?
I think people are looking at those same people, and in a murder trial, everybody gets to know each other very well. That jury is sitting very close to the lawyers, to the defendant, to all of the witnesses, and you're all in a box together for a month or 2 months or even longer in this case. Mm-hmm. And so they get a feel for people, not just what they say, but a feel for who they are as individuals.
Now, I know this time they've impounded the jurors list, so that information is not going to be out there publicly, and even if told reporters, you cannot describe them physically, because I think a lot of these jurors are very concerned about their safety and well-being, because some people who are observers in this case, I think, are maybe want to get a little too involved. I guess that's a good way to put that. Do you think that's a good idea for jurors' safety?
I think it's a great idea. I think juror safety is paramount in a case like this, both during the trial and after the trial, and the Commonwealth has good mechanisms to protect people, and it's very, very, very rare in Massachusetts that you hear of any real harassment towards jurors during or after a trial.
I see it in the movies all the time.
It happens in the movies.
Yeah, I had to, but those make good movies. Anything else I didn't ask you about that you think our listeners might want to know to be prepared for? I feel like we're going on maneuvers here, but a lot of people are watching this trial.
I think the lawyering on both sides is exceptional, and the facts are pretty well vetted, and so it'll be a good ride, and I would encourage everybody to pay as close attention as they can and enjoy it.
Well, we'll be following it, of course, on the WATD News, and we appreciate having you on. Hopefully we can have you on in the middle of the trial, because we expect this is probably going to be another long one. Again, that's Liam Scully. He is with Scully Lagos, defense attorney with offices in Boston and on the South Shore. Been a practicing attorney for just about 3 decades. We're going to put this interview up online, too. We appreciate you joining us today.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Christine James, 95.9 WATD.